Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Digging Deep, an Okie 811 podcast. This podcast, we're going to be talking with Tim Teel of CenterPoint Energy. We are going to be talking about what it's like to be in damage prevention for a natural gas distribution company and talking about what that job entails and the partnerships that CenterPoint has with Okie 811. So I'm really excited about this topic. So let's just dive right into it. Tim, can you tell us a little bit about you and your responsibilities with CenterPoint?
Hey, good morning. So I've been with CenterPoint almost 12 years now. I started off as a field service technician, so I spent about 8 or 9 years out in the field, and then coming into damage prevention. I've had a great relationship with you, MG. You've been very helpful with, bringing me along in this. Great resources, and always great to reach out to you and partner with OPA11. So thanks for having me on this morning.
Hey, no problem. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We have a lot to cover today. So those who are listening for us, maybe for the first time, our podcast is going to take about 20 to 30 minutes at most. So buckle in. You're going to learn a lot. And if you have any questions, never hesitate to reach out to myself at any time for clarification or any information that you may need. So one of the reasons that Tim and I decided to have this discussion today is because CenterPoint, we haven't had a guest yet that has a distribution that goes to residential or homeowners. And so that's a big push when it comes to 811. A lot of those not professional excavators have the hardest time understanding the importance of 811 because they're not digging every day. They don't have that insurance company that they have to keep in line and all that stuff. So it's just that homeowner who's putting in a tree or putting up a fence that may not know the importance of 811. And then couple that with your product, your service that you're providing to those homeowners or right there on their property. So I was wondering if you can kind of go into detail. How do you reach out to those homeowners and those not professional excavators?
Well, in damage prevention, so much of our focus is on the professional excavators, just because of the quantity that they're calling in tickets and the size of the projects. But it's just as important to notify the homeowners that, the weekend warrior projects and things like that, because they are excavating and, more often than not, those are, we see damages from those types of instances. So, I always say, gas is a great product. It's a very safe product as long as it's in the pipe.
Right.
When we have an accidental release of the gas, things can become dangerous, and so it's just as important to outreach to homeowners or, property owners, landlords and things like that, are not necessarily a big outfit or professional excavator, but they do have projects. And, the law is very clear that, if you're disturbing dirt or disturbing the ground, that's considered an excavation. So, whether you're putting in a new fence or doing landscaping projects, sprinkler system, putting in a mailbox, tent stakes, we've seen issues with tent stakes. It's very important, have underground utilities located and marked prior to beginning any of these types of things to prevent these damages from happening.
Yeah, and so we get that message out to the homeowner. Our homeowners actually have it pretty easy on our website. A homeowner can go to okie811.org. Under submit a locate request, there's homeowners. You click that, and if your address pops up or populates through the mapping system, we'll just highlight your property. You tell us what you're doing on the property, and your ticket's done. All we need is your contact information and where you live and what you're doing. So homeowners, if you or anybody who's not a professional excavator, use that homeowner wizard. It saves a lot of time. It makes it really quick. It's quicker than a phone call. It's pretty straightforward, and that locate request will go to everybody who's around your property to respond to you. And so our effort is to get that information out there. Also, for those homeowners who are doing that type of work, if you hire out that project with a landscaper or someone's installing a storm shelter or doing a fencing job, remember it's the responsibility of whoever is digging to put in that locate request. Not the property owner, but the actual person who's going to take on the responsibility and risk, right? So that's important to remember as well.
A big deal I always hit on is, plan your project. I'm guilty of this as well. I mean, I'll have an idea in my head and it's like, oh, great, let's run to Lowe's and go get this stuff and knock it out real quick. But if you're going to be digging or excavating in any way, make sure you plan it out. Make sure you have an idea of where you're either going to be planting or digging your holes. Have an idea about how long you think it might take you. That way, whenever you do go in to call or go online to submit your ticket request, you've got that information handy. And then obviously, get a ticket in. That's the important part, is to get those lines marked. Then you want to wait and make sure that all the utility lines are marked. Wait for that start date. And then, check your positive response. MG, if you want to touch back on that a little bit, go a little in deeper detail on positive response.
Yeah, certainly. Actually, I can elaborate on all 3 points so far. When you're planning your work, one thing that we require is enough notification to give those companies that have those underground facilities enough time to respond. And by law, the minimum amount of notice you can give is 2 business days, not counting the date of notification. So if you call it on a Monday, and the earliest you could dig would be Thursday morning at 7 a.m. So what happens a lot of times is a homeowner, like Tim and I have probably both been guilty of, we'll go, hey, I'm going to get in the yard this weekend. I'm going to do some landscaping, and I call on Thursday because that's when the idea hits me. I'm calling on Thursday, and they're like, well, well, Thursday doesn't count. Friday is 24 hours. The weekend doesn't count. So the earliest I could dig would be Tuesday. And I'm like, well, that means this project needs to be next week. So when you're planning, also plan the start time to be at least 3 business days away from your call in or your submission on our website. And I really want to harp on submitting these locate requests on our website. It's faster, it's easier. If you've never submitted one on the website, by all means, give us a call. But the Homeowner Wizard is pretty straightforward. But if you've never put one on the website, you may want to give us a call just so you understand the questions. You have an idea of what you're answering on the computer. Then you're going to wait for the response from the member companies. You're going to make sure they've all marked or called or let you know it's all clear. And that positive response is going to be available to you on your ticket information. So you have a hub, if you will, to be able to say, okay, CenterPoint's been here, check. You can see who's been responding out to the tickets. And it's the starting point for that communication between the excavator or homeowner that's excavating and the member companies that are responding to it. So that's where we are right now. And the next step obviously is going to be respecting those marks that are laid down. So the locator goes out there, they put the markings down, and then you have to dig safe around it. And Tim, you can elaborate on that.
Yeah. And I also want to make the point that you don't want to make assumptions. That really gets a lot of people in trouble. They think that, well, all my stuff, my utilities come in from the back. There's not going to be anything in the front, so I don't need to call in a ticket. You don't want to do that. You don't know where all the utilities come from. Just because you don't see signs of it doesn't mean that there may not be there. Right. So it's really important just to call in a ticket for the scope of, your whole address. I mean, it's not going to hurt just to know where all those things are at. And the second thing you want to do, like you were talking about, let's respect the marks. We have in Oklahoma what's called a tolerance zone. It's 24 inches on either side of the marks. And that's basically just like a corridor or a tunnel where you need to stop and say, hey, there's a line in here and I need to be safe, within this corridor. You don't want to assume that you know the depth just because, you think you may have an idea of how deep it is. I hear it all the time. It's like, well, I saw this line, 10 years ago and it was about this deep. I mean, soil erosion happens. Things can change. You just don't ever want to assume the depth of that line. So when you are working near those marks, we ask that you don't use mechanized equipment. Use a shovel, hand dig, and dig slowly. Be careful. If you're digging down and you feel something hard, or you run into a stopping point, don't always just push through it. Be a little more careful, go around it, because it may be a buried utility. It doesn't take much to cut through a telephone line or a cable line, and a lot of our gas piping is plastic, so it doesn't take much to damage those type of things. So you really, really want to be careful around those marks. And damages. Oh, go ahead, Imogen.
So with that, the respecting the marks, one thing that I like to say is discovery. And so you're there, you see this corridor like you're describing, you know that this product is going to be within 2 feet either side of that marking as you dig down. So go ahead and take the time. If it's near your work site, go ahead and discover. Like, find out the depth, find out the direction that it's running, and then find out the distance. Is it throughout your project, your work area, or does it go off this way and you're good? Like, go ahead and discover. So discover the 3Ds is kind of my new catchphrase I came up with a couple months ago. So Tim, you can use it anytime you need to, but discover the depth, the direction, and distance of that underground facility so that you're going to stay safe around it. Especially on the professional side, obviously they have a lot bigger equipment than the average homeowner. So that's a different topic. But as a homeowner, I've been guilty. I'll tell a story on myself. I had an ex-wife, and she wanted me to do some landscaping, and I said yes, because that's what good husbands do. And I jumped out there, and I didn't call 811. It was before my knowledge was where it is now. And I get out there, and I'm digging, and I went, and I was pulling up on this root. I thought I was really, and I was like, "What is it?" Like, I don't understand why my shovel is stuck. And then I start pulling it back, and I pull my shovel out, and I go in again, and I realize I'm up underneath a telecom or a cable line.
Yeah.
And because the pedestal wasn't that far away. And like, now looking back, it's total common sense, but I was like, hey, I can't get fired for cutting a line. I need to call 811 and do the right thing. So if those markings had been there, I would have been aware to at least dig safer and slower to discover those lines that are in that area.
I will also say that sometimes your project will change once you see where the marks are at.
Yeah.
Go ahead and call, and then it lets you see where all your utilities at. And that spot that you thought was going to be a great spot to plant that tree may not be a great spot anymore. And so you can dig smart, you can plan smart by just planning or excavating completely away from those utilities, and then it takes the risk completely out of it. I see it a lot with fencing companies. When you're setting your ideas of where you're going to put your fence posts, don't put it within that tolerance zone of where those marks are at. Set that post, far enough away where you're not going to be in any kind of conflict. So, sometimes just seeing the marks on the ground and where the utilities are actually at can go really far in damage prevention. So, and then, damages do happen. They do happen. You always want to get away from the scene, especially if it's a natural gas damage. You want to get as far away from the scene as you can and immediately call 911. Report it to the company, the damaging company. And if you don't have that number, there's a way, MG, that they can report the damages through you guys, right?
Exactly. Anytime damage is discovered, it doesn't have to be your fault. You're not taking responsibility of the damage. You're saying, hey, I've discovered this. Obviously in this scenario, we're saying, hey, if it happens while you're digging, call 911, get safe, and then report it. But overall, you can report damage by giving us a call. You'll just dial 811. Our CSR, our customer service representative, will ask what is damaged. If you know it's a telecommunication line, if you see it's a pipeline, if there's a leak, whatever the case may be, and then we'll put together a notice to send out to all the utilities in that area so they can have at least knowledge of it and a record of it. Again, it's not claiming responsibility for damage. So if you see it on neighbor's property or down the street or anything like that, go ahead and give us a call. It's a good neighbor thing to do. One thing I learned with that damage report is I was actually doing a presentation with the Oklahoma Rural Water Association. And this guy in the back raised his hand. He goes, "I really like this damage report tool." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "Yeah, it's great." and he goes, "No, like, think about it. Like, as a rural water system, they may have a leak, and if it's big and huge, they know within minutes that they're losing thousands of gallons at a time. But if it's a smaller leak and there's just a puddle that's building up, if that farmer who's out in that area looked over and he's like, 'Oh, that's weird. There's a puddle here and it hasn't rained in 3 weeks,' and they make that phone call, that just saved everybody money, because that water system can go out, they can repair that puddle. They're not having that loss of that water just going nowhere, and it saves the customers money as well. So be a good neighbor. If you see things that are unusual when it comes to things that are underground, give us a call so we can at least get that information back out to the member companies.
That's right. Within gas distribution, especially with CenterPoint, a lot of our new services that we install have what's called an EFV. It's an excessive flow valve. So another important reason to have those lines marked is sometimes damages can go unnoticed. So if one of these services that has this safety measure on it is cut, it shuts the flow of gas off. So you won't hear and you won't smell, and it can go completely unnoticed that you've damaged the line.
Oh, wow.
So, like I said, having those marks there are just, that's it. I mean, that takes care of a lot of things. I mean, when I'm reviewing a damage and we're going through and trying to find the root cause analysis, there's nothing more frustrating than finding a damage that could have been completely avoided.
Right.
So, doing everything you can, try to stop these from happening, all starts with making that either call or online submission to have a ticket.
Right, exactly. You can do 99% of everything correctly, but that 1% mistake may result in damage. So digging safely is always the fifth step when we talk about, 5 steps of safer excavation. And digging safe, you've already put in the call. Thank you for that. You're not digging blind, right? So step 1, thank you for doing that. Then you're going to wait the required time, give the member companies enough time to come out and mark everything. You're going to respect the marks. You're going to do that discovery of the 3 Ds, right? We all learned that today. So you're going to find out where that stuff is, and then you're going to dig safely around it. And that final step, it sounds easy enough, right? Well, I know where it is now. I can go to town. I can plant this tree that I've always wanted to plant. But if you're not still, at least in mind, going, hey, there's this system right over here, or I didn't take the time to discover it, or I want to make that decision too quickly, it may result in damage. So mitigate the risk throughout your project, and so that your property, your project will all go according to plan and go smoothly. So I really appreciate you helping me break down the 5 steps of safer excavation for our listeners, especially when it applies to natural gas and property owners.
No problem.
One thing that I know that in your role is just outreach, whether it's professional or it's the homeowners that are doing work. How do you view an effective outreach program? What do you do to establish relationships? How are you communicating the importance of 811? That kind of stuff.
Well, the one-on-one conversations are really, I feel, are the most impactful. Getting out into the public, having, a booth in an event or things like that. CenterPoint did a campaign where we've got some 811 banners. So we went and hung them Lowe's and Home Depot with their garden centers, things like that. We push really, really hard to get the 811 message out there. I'd also say if you are an employee of a utility company, you are an ambassador for 811. If you're on social media, follow your local One Calls social media pages and share those with your friends and family members. That's the easiest way to get that message out there. Social media, everybody's on it. It takes 2 seconds to hit the share button and type of comment, so there's a lot of emphasis on that. But like I said, those one-on-one conversations, being able to tell somebody your story, shake their hand, put a name with a face. I always tell people when I'm talking about pipe, and our facilities, I want them to know that that's not only CenterPoint's pipe and CenterPoint's gas, that's Tim's. And so I'm going to protect this pipe because this is Tim's pipe and he's a good dude. And I don't want to make him mad, and I want to take care of him and his pipe. So, the one-on-one connections has really been the staple for me.
Oh, that is awesome. I know that it's so much easier when I'm speaking to a group. It's almost the after presentation conversations where I go from 40 to 1, and I can tell the 40 to be safe, and every one of them are listening, and they're like, yeah, that'll never happen to me. Yeah. Like I can say message, but then when that one person comes and talk to me, and I'll have the same conversation, the same topics, I can see light bulbs, like, oh, like my embarrassing story of digging up a cable route. Those things, when they hear, oh, it happened to you and you're just an average guy, it could happen to me. Bringing it down to one-on-one, like you're saying, I think that has a bigger impact, or at least a lasting impact, versus the whole sit down, listen, you're one of 50 in this room, and these are the rules, this is how it goes, see ya. And I think the one-on-one conversation is just a little bit more impactful.
Very much. Yeah.
I'm excited about the things that you and I have done over the last couple of years. Your role with the damage prevention. What are you going on 2 years now? Because I think you and I kind of now. Yeah, because you and I kind of got started in our roles about the same time, so we're kind of just figuring it all out together.
Making a path, man. Just paving our way through. So
there you go. And one of the ways that we partner up on things is when I get down to Lawton, I know I can call on you for anything. And so our listeners who are in the Lawton area, let me know if you need some A11 material, some education, or if you just want to talk to Tim about what's going on in Lawton, we can make that happen. He's an ambassador truly for A11 for the state, and I'm someone I can trust down in Lawton. And we do a lot of cool things. Hopefully, as things get a little bit more relaxed and we can do more stuff in person, right? I'm looking forward to doing in-person trainings down in Lawton again. I have some stuff coming up with the city, and so one thing that I've always been able to count on you for is those partnerships. You've been part of Safety Days with us, and doing others to promote safe digging in that area.
Right.
So I really appreciate that for sure. Something that's coming up this year, we're looking at this fall. So this isn't 100%. So those listeners, follow our social media so that you can see events coming up. But hopefully Tim and I will be able to put together an event this fall in Lawton. So looking forward to that.
That would be great. That would be great if we can get that going.
Yeah. So Tim, another thing that we need to talk about, we're coming into storm season. I mean, April is National Safe Digging Month. April showers brings May flowers, all that good stuff. And so we're coming into storm season, and there might be damages that are resulting from that. Let's talk about being prepared for the storm season.
Well, Oklahoma is known for our storms. Whether they're winter or spring storms, they both can have impacts on utility companies. It's really important after the storm, if you smell natural gas or things like things, to get those things reported. We want to make sure that we can respond effectively and get those things taken care of and make those things safe as quick as possible. With storm often comes cleanup jobs. So when you're performing these cleanup jobs, remember that if you're going to be doing any excavation, or you've got a tree that's come down and now you need to get it dug up and removed, all those same things. Call 811, get in a ticket, make sure that those lines are marked before you go just ripping things out of the ground. And it's also important not to store or lay those things on top of utility facilities. So don't throw your limbs on top of a gas meter or a phone pedestal or things like that. We need to be able to have access to those things to respond safely to things. And you can delay that process sometimes by piling debris and things like that on or near those things. And then like I said, if you've got projects that are going to be resulting from damages from the storm, it's a good idea to call in a ticket and have those things marked. So
awesome, great points. And if you're also getting prepared for storm shelter or storm season by getting the storm shelter, remember, call back to the beginning of the conversation. Whoever's actually putting that shovel in the ground needs to be the one who's calling us. So if your storm shelter company says, hey, you're the property owner, put in the locate request, advise them, hey, I'm not the one digging. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if you are, since you're taking on that responsibility. And if they refuse, I promise you there's storm shelter companies that will call in 811,
right,
as they should. And feel free to have them call me. If the storm shelter company refuses, say, hey, call MG. He'll explain it to you, and I'll be happy to do so, because I want everybody to stay safe out there through a safe excavation in the state.
Provided in partnership with Damage Prevention Academy, Okie 811's excavator education program is certified by the Gold Shovel Standard. Upon completion of this training, you will be educated in the regulations surrounding excavation in Oklahoma and the best practices for safe digging and damage prevention. Okie 811 certified excavators can rely on this high-quality online training, which specifically incorporates everything they need to know for the prevention of damage to critical buried infrastructure, as well as increased public and workforce safety. The training will take approximately 2 hours to complete. The training is fully responsive, mobile enabled, and can be completed on a desktop, laptop, tablet, or other mobile device as your schedule allows. The Okie 811 Damage Prevention Certification is a proactive indication of an increased investment in damage prevention to drive safety, reduce damages, and minimize the risks associated with excavating on or around buried assets. Once you have successfully completed the training and exam, you will receive a certificate of achievement, including the Gold Shovel Standard Seal. To get Okie 811 certified, go to okie811.org/excavation certification.
So, Tim, we've talked about a lot today. I appreciate your time. We talked about your public awareness efforts, especially going to those who are non-professional excavators, and what we've done there with letting them know the importance of, hey, that backyard project still needs to be called in. We still need to get those lines marked. We talked about the 5 steps of safer excavation, where, I won't go into all of it again, but calling in, respecting the marks, digging safe, all those things are very, very important. And then your outreach. I'm glad that not only are you in the industry with me, but I can trust on you, and you're an ambassador for 811 in your area. So that means a lot to me, and I appreciate that. And obviously taking the time to talk with us today. And then, of course, being prepared. Digging safe is paramount. We want that to happen. But if damages occur or storm comes through, and there's things that you have to react to, we also want you to stay safe in those areas too. So keep us in mind if you're reporting damage, or like Tim explained, if you're doing cleanup, don't let your cleanup get in the way of the utilities doing their cleanup as well. So,
right.
Yeah. So anything else you want to add before we wrap up everything?
Just, if you're in this industry, it doesn't matter if you're a utility worker or you're on the excavation side, please follow Okie 811's social media, share away with your friends and family. Social media is the easiest way to get the call before you dig message out there. So we can all be ambassadors for safe digging and calling 811.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. Thank you for the plug for all of our social media. We are doing some really great things with our social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're out there. Look for us, follow us, connect with us. And like Tim said, a quick share. I mean, you are in the industry, but your cousin Billy probably is not. And he has the opportunity to see it, and it makes a huge impact. So we appreciate those shares and just getting that information out to the average person. So we definitely want to see that. And of course, if you're listening to our podcast, there's no reason you can't share your podcast with your friends and family as well.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Always a good time with you, MG. So
awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. And I will let you get back to keeping people safe. So thank you so much, Tim.
Thanks, MG.